Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Today we're tackling a topic that's often surrounded by misconceptions, autism spectrum disorder.
And we're going beyond those surface level understandings, the kind you might find with a quick Google search.
We've got a stack of insightful research and articles right here, and we're going to pull out the nuggets of knowledge that really matter.
Think of it like this. Instead of handing you an entire encyclopedia on autism, we're giving you the VIP tour.
Yeah, we'll cut through the noise, highlight the aha moments, and hopefully leave you with a deeper understanding of this complex condition.
Okay, so first things first, how does our source actually define autism spectrum disorder?
Well, it describes ASD as a neurodevelopmental condition.
Okay, hold on. I'm already feeling that textbook definition vibe.
Fair enough. Imagine your brain as a bustling city, right? With roads and buildings. With autism, some of those roads might be rerouted. Some buildings might be structured a little differently.
So the way the brain develops and functions takes a slightly different path.
Exactly. And that affects how a person interacts with the world, especially when it comes to social communication, understanding social cues.
Which brings us to that crucial word, spectrum. What does that actually mean in the context of autism?
It means we can't just lump everyone with autism under one umbrella. It's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Right, like some people might just need a little extra support in certain areas, while others might need more significant support.
It's about recognizing that each individual with autism is unique. Just like, every individual without autism is unique. Each person has their own strengths, challenges, and ways of experiencing the world.
So it's about individual understanding, not broad generalizations. Our source dives into four key areas that often look different in individuals with autism. Let's break those down.
Absolutely. Those are social interaction, communication styles, repetitive behaviors, and sensory sensitivities.
Those are pretty broad categories.
Yeah.
Let's get into the specifics. Starting with social challenges. Our source mentions difficulty understanding social cues. What does that actually look like in, real life?
Imagine you're at a party, right? And you're chatting with someone who's starting to angle their body towards the door, checking their watch. Most people would pick up on those cues, that the person's ready to end the conversation.
Subtle hints that it's time to move on.
Exactly. But for someone with autism, those cues might not register as easily. And it's not that they don't want to be social, they just process those subtle social signals differently.
And then there's eye contact, which I know can be tricky even for people who aren't on the spectrum.
Absolutely. It's like this high bandwidth channel of communication that can feel really overwhelming for some individuals with autism. Maintaining eye contact might require a lot of effort, and that can make it harder to process what's being said.
So something that seems like a really basic social norm can be a completely different experience for someone with autism.
It highlights the importance of meeting people where they are and respecting their communication preferences.
It's like we're decoding those unspoken rules of social interaction, the ones that so many of us just, take for granted.
Precisely. And that leads us to another key area. Communication styles. It's not just about understanding social cues, but also about how individuals with autism express themselves.
Right. And as our source mentioned, this can look a lot of different ways.
Absolutely. For some, it might mean being nonverbal, communicating through, alternative means like sign language or visual aids.
Which just highlights how important it is to have multiple ways to communicate.
Exactly. Others might have delays in developing speech, or they might use language in unique ways.
Like repeating phrases, which our source pointed out.
Yes, and it's often misunderstood, but repeating phrases can actually serve a really valuable purpose. It might be a way for someone with autism to self-soothe or to process information, or even just to connect with the rhythm and sound of language.
It's a reminder that what might seem unusual to us might be a completely natural and functional form of communication for someone else.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And let's not forget about those nonverbal cues we talked about earlier. Individuals with autism might have a different experience with those as well.
Right, like facial expressions, tone of voice,
Hmm.
all those extra layers of communication.
Exactly. Imagine trying to understand a movie, but without hearing the dialogue or the soundtrack. You might miss crucial plot points or the emotional nuances.
So it's like missing those extra dimensions of communication that most people rely on so heavily.
And that can make navigating those social interactions even more complex. It's about recognizing those differences and adjusting our communication styles accordingly.
Okay, so we've covered social challenges and communication. What about repetitive behaviors? This is one that I feel gets, like, stereotyped a lot.
Absolutely. People often just think of repetitive movements when they hear about autism, like hand
Yeah.
flapping or rocking.
But our source emphasizes it's a much broader category than that.
Exactly. It's about seeking predictability and routine, which can be incredibly calming and help to manage anxiety.
So it's not just about the action itself, but the need for structure and consistency.
Precisely. Think of it like this. Imagine you have a favorite coffee shop, right? And you always order the same drink. That familiarity, the routine, it's comforting.
Right.
Absolutely. It's like your safe space.
For someone with autism, those routines and rituals provide that same sense of comfort and predictability
Yeah.
in a world that can often feel very overwhelming.
It's about finding those anchors of stability in everyday life.
Exactly. And those anchors can look different for everyone. For one person, it might be about having their clothes laid out in a specific order. For another, it might be about following a very strict bedtime routine.
It's about understanding that these behaviors serve a purpose and aren't meant to be disruptive.
And that brings us to our final category, sensory sensitivities. This one is fascinating because it's about how the brain processes sensory information, which can be very different for individuals with autism. Our source mentioned it can kind of go both ways, being overwhelmed by sensory input or actually needing more of it.
It's like having a volume knob that's like stuck on high or stuck on low. Some individuals with autism might be hypersensitive to certain sounds, textures, or lights.
Like that bustling shopping mall you described earlier.
Exactly. That overload can be incredibly intense, leading to sensory overload, potentially even a meltdown.
On the flip side, some might be hyposensitive, needing more intense input to even register it.
Imagine craving spicy food, right? Because your taste buds need that extra kick to actually experience the flavor.
So it's about finding that sweet spot, that sensory balance that works for each individual.
Precisely. And that's why creating sensory-friendly environments is so crucial. It's about recognizing that everyone experiences the world differently and making those experiences more accessible and inclusive.
This has been, honestly, really eye-opening. And it makes you think about all those subtle ways we interact with the world.
Yeah, it's like we're kind of peeling back the layers of human experience and realizing how diverse those experiences can actually be.
Absolutely. But it makes me wonder, why should someone who doesn't have, like, direct experience with autism in their life, why should they make an effort to understand all of this? What's the, like, bigger picture here?
That's the question I'm glad you asked, because it highlights why we're even on this deep dive today, right? It's not just about like accumulating knowledge. It's about applying it to create a more inclusive and compassionate world. And understanding autism, even in all its little nuances, can help us break down stereotypes, challenge our own preconceived notions.
So it's about recognizing those single-story narratives we often encounter and actively, seeking out diverse perspectives.
Exactly. We move beyond seeing autism as just this like monolith and start appreciating that incredible range of strengths, talents, perspectives that individuals with autism bring to the table. And it's not even just about like tolerance, right? It's about embracing neurodiversity as this fundamental aspect of the human experience.
And our source also emphasized the importance of early diagnosis. How does that kind of tie into this bigger picture of understanding?
Early intervention can be, honestly, transformative, not because it fixes autism, but because it provides individuals with the tools and support they need to really thrive. Think about it like we all learn and develop at our own pace, right? Early intervention for children with autism is about providing that tailored support that helps them reach their full potential.
It's about creating a world where everyone has the opportunity to succeed, on their own terms.
Precisely. Early diagnosis allows us to celebrate and nurture those unique abilities, rather than trying to fit individuals into a one-size-fits-all mold. It's about empowering individuals with autism to advocate for themselves, navigate the world with confidence, and lead fulfilling lives.
So this deep dive into understanding autism, it's really about so much more than just, the facts.
It's about cultivating empathy, challenging our assumptions, and actively creating a world where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued for, exactly who they are. It's about recognizing that our differences, including those on the autism spectrum, are what make life well, rich, and meaningful.
This has been an incredible journey. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on autism, but I also know this is just, like we said, the tip of the iceberg. There's always more to learn, more voices to hear, and more ways to, be an ally.
I couldn't agree more. Keep asking questions, stay curious, and remember, creating a truly inclusive world, it's an ongoing journey, not a destination.
So as you go about your day, think about this. How can you take what you've learned today and turn it into action? How can you be an advocate for understanding, acceptance, and inclusion in your own, circles and communities? Keep those questions in mind and keep diving deeper into the fascinating world of autism.
Until next time.